When a man truly connects with you on a deep emotional level, it goes far beyond physical attraction or surface-level chemistry. It becomes something intangible, an imprint that embeds itself in his emotional memory. Long after the conversations have ended and the messages have stopped, he still feels your energy around him. It's not something he can explain logically, because it's not logic that ties him to you. It's emotion. You see, emotions are energy, and energy doesn't disappear. It transforms, it lingers, and it influences. When you've touched a man's heart, you create an emotional vibration that stays within him even when he tries to suppress it. That imprint is what causes him to pause when he sees something that reminds him of you, to replay moments in his mind when he least expects it, or to feel a sense of emptiness he can't name. When a woman leaves a deep emotional impression, she becomes part of his inner narrative. Every man carries a story about love, connection, and loss, and when you've made an emotional mark, your presence becomes a chapter that can't be erased. He may try to distract himself with work, friends, or even other people, but those things only temporarily silence the echo of what he felt with you. That echo grows stronger in the quiet moments, when he's alone, when he's reflective, or when he's faced with something that reminds him of what he once had. Emotional imprints don't fade through time. They deepen when they are left unresolved, and they often become the standard against which he subconsciously measures all future connections. This kind of impact doesn't happen through words or manipulation. It happens through authenticity. It happens when you show up as your true self, when you connect with him emotionally rather than just physically, when your energy radiates calm, certainty, and depth. Men are often not taught to handle deep emotional experiences. They are conditioned to control or bury them. So when a woman comes along who makes him feel something powerful, it shakes him at his core. It forces him to look at himself differently, to confront emotions he may have never faced before. That is why even after separation, he still feels you, not because of what you did, but because of what you awakened in him. You might not realize it, but you altered his emotional chemistry. The conversations, the laughter, the silence, even the way you looked at him. All of it becomes imprinted in his emotional memory. Every time he feels a surge of nostalgia or longing, that's your energy still present in his mind. The truth is, real connection doesn't dissolve in silence, it matures there. It grows stronger because the mind feeds on what it misses. The absence creates space for imagination, and imagination amplifies emotion. What once was real becomes even more potent in memory, and that's where the emotional imprint lives, quietly, persistently, beneath the surface of his everyday life, shaping how he sees love and what he still hopes to find again. Silence often confuses people because it looks like indifference, but in truth, silence can hold more emotion than words ever could. When a man goes silent after being deeply connected to you, it's rarely because he stopped caring. It's because he's overwhelmed by what he feels and doesn't know how to process it. Men are taught to be logical, to fix things, to stay in control. But emotions don't obey logic, and when he feels something powerful that shakes that control, his instinct is to retreat into silence. That silence is his way of protecting himself from emotions he can't manage, from a connection that feels too consuming, from vulnerability that feels too real. It's not that he doesn't think about you, it's that he can't stop thinking about you, and that thought pulls him into a quiet battle between his heart and his ego. Silence is not an absence of thought, it's a space filled with noise that no one else can hear. When he doesn't text, when he doesn't call, when he doesn't check in, it's easy to assume he's moved on. But deep inside, his silence is full of conversations he's having with himself. He replays moments with you, wonders what you're doing, and questions whether pulling away was a mistake. He may convince himself that staying silent makes him stronger or more in control. But the truth is, silence is often the loudest sign of inner turmoil. Every time he stops himself from reaching out, he feels that internal tug of curiosity and longing. Every time he tries to convince himself he's fine, your memory whispers louder in his mind. What many women don't realize is that when a man feels emotionally drawn but uncertain, he uses silence as a shield. It gives him space to think, but it also magnifies the feelings he's trying to escape. Because silence has a strange way of intensifying everything. It turns small thoughts into obsessions, fleeting memories into vivid moments. When he's alone with his thoughts, he's not escaping you, he's confronting the emotional imprint you left. Every quiet moment becomes a reminder of the connection he once had and the energy that still pulls him back toward you. Men often confuse silence with control, but the heart doesn't play by those rules. He might stay quiet, but that doesn't mean he's detached. His silence can be a sign of obsession, of emotional paralysis, of trying to hide vulnerability under the illusion of strength. And sometimes, that silence is where he starts to realize how deeply he cares. The absence of communication becomes the very thing that keeps you present in his thoughts. He feels your absence more sharply because he created the space himself, and in that space, the echo of you grows louder. That's why silence can be so revealing. It shows what words cannot, it exposes what pride tries to hide, and it reveals that what looks like distance is often the shadow of a connection he can't let go of. Even when a man doesn't reach out, even when he seems to have vanished into his world, there are traces of you that live quietly inside his daily routine. You become part of his subconscious rhythm, woven into the background of his days without him even realizing it. Maybe it's the way he scrolls through his phone late at night and pauses on your old messages, or how a song plays in the car and for a few seconds, his mind drifts back to you. It could be something small, a scent, a phrase, a color, that triggers a memory he can't shake. You've become a pattern in his thoughts, an emotional habit that he keeps feeding without meaning to. You're not in his inbox anymore, but you're in the spaces between his actions, in the silence before he falls asleep, in the moments when he's alone and his mind has nowhere else to run but back to you. When a woman has left a deep mark, she becomes part of his inner landscape. He might not admit it, but he catches himself comparing new experiences to old ones. Every new laugh reminds him of yours. Every new face seems familiar because it echoes something you once showed him. That's how emotional memory works. It attaches itself to the familiar and keeps replaying the feeling it misses. You've carved out a space in his subconscious, and even though life moves on, the imprint doesn't. It's like background music playing softly behind every new moment. He might not consciously listen to it, but it's always there, shaping the way he feels, the way he reacts, and even the way he views new connections. Men often pride themselves on being rational, on being able to compartmentalize their emotions, but the subconscious doesn't respect logic. It stores feelings, sensations, and experiences like an emotional archive, ready to resurface at the smallest trigger. So when he's brushing his teeth, driving to work, or scrolling through social media, your memory can appear without warning. Maybe it's the way a woman flips her hair that reminds him of you, or a joke someone makes that sounds like something you would say. These subtle reminders keep pulling him back into a state of reflection he tries to avoid. And the more he resists thinking about you, the more powerful those thoughts become, because suppression only gives energy to the very thing we're trying to silence. You occupy a place in his mind, not because he chooses to, but because the emotional connection you shared became a part of his internal routine. The subconscious doesn't differentiate between past and present. It only recognizes emotion. So when he feels a surge of warmth, sadness, or nostalgia, it's your emotional fingerprint that resurfaces. He might find himself scrolling through old photos just to feel that familiar spark again, or checking your profile to see what's changed. Even if he doesn't reach out, that quiet curiosity is proof of your presence in his inner world. You've become a loop he keeps revisiting, not because he wants to, but because his heart hasn't fully closed the chapter. When something between two people ends without true closure, It leaves an invisible thread that continues to pull long after the connection seems broken. That's the power of unfinished energy. It doesn't dissolve just because words stopped or distance grew. When a man feels that a chapter with you didn't close properly, that lingering sense of incompletion stays with him, living quietly in the corners of his mind. He replays the last moments, wondering what he could have said differently, what he could have done to change the outcome. Even if he's moved on to someone new, that unresolved energy keeps looping in his subconscious, making him compare, question, and revisit. Every new experience becomes a mirror reflecting the parts of your story that he still hasn't made peace with. The human heart doesn't like unfinished stories. It craves resolution, it wants meaning, and when it doesn't get that, it holds on tighter. That's why when a connection ends abruptly or fades without real understanding, it doesn't really end, it just shifts forms. It becomes a quiet obsession, a wondering, a set of unanswered questions that refuse to go away. When he sees something that reminds him of you, that energy wakes up again, reminding him that not everything was said, not everything was healed. It's not always about wanting to come back. Sometimes it's about trying to understand what it all meant. But in that search for meaning, you remain a part of his emotional reality. Men often try to rationalize their way through emotions, convincing themselves that time will erase what they feel. But emotional energy doesn't obey time. It responds to attention, to memory, to unresolved emotion. When a man feels he lost something real without understanding why, it stays open inside him like an unfinished sentence. He can meet new people, chase new experiences, but deep down he's still chasing the feeling he had with you, the connection that felt different, the energy that felt alive. Every time he compares, every time he notices that something's missing, it's the echo of that unfinished connection calling him back to reflection. This is why he might check in after months of silence or suddenly bring your name up in conversation. It's not random, it's the energy resurfacing because his mind is still searching for closure. He might not even realize it, but the more he tries to ignore it, the more powerful it becomes. Unfinished emotions demand attention. They linger in dreams, in music, in memories that come without warning. When he meets someone new, he might feel that spark for a moment, but then something reminds him that it's not quite the same. That's when he understands that the chapter with you isn't over emotionally, even if it ended physically. That unresolved space between what was and what could have been becomes the quiet bridge that keeps you present in his inner world, looping in his thoughts like a song that never truly fades out. There's something magnetic about mystery, something deeply compelling about a woman who doesn't reveal everything about herself. When a man encounters a woman who carries herself with quiet confidence and an aura of calm depth, she stirs a sense of fascination that he can't fully define. It's not just her looks or her words, it's her energy, her composure, the way she moves through the world as if she's guided by her own rhythm. That mystery awakens a man's curiosity in a way that few things can. He becomes intrigued by what he doesn't understand, drawn to what he can't predict. The more she remains composed and self-assured, the more his mind keeps returning to her, trying to decode her thoughts, her feelings, and her intentions. Mystery is not about playing games, it's about presence. It's the power of being fully yourself without the need to prove or explain, and that energy lingers long after the conversation ends. When a woman embodies quiet strength, it creates contrast. Most people seek validation or chase attention, but the woman who doesn't chase stands out. Her energy communicates something rare, self-sufficiency. She doesn't seek to be chosen because she already knows her value. That kind of energy disrupts the pattern most men are used to. It challenges them to rise, to prove themselves, to earn a place in her world. The more he senses that she doesn't need him to feel whole, the more he feels drawn to her. That's the paradox of desire. What is scarce feels valuable. What is abundant feels ordinary. When she gives her attention sparingly, it carries weight. Her silence becomes louder than words, her absence more powerful than her presence. That mystery keeps him engaged mentally long after she's gone. Men often fall for the woman who evokes emotion but stays composed, who can connect deeply yet remain detached. That balance creates intrigue because it leaves room for imagination. The unknown becomes the canvas on which he paints his fantasies, his questions, his longing. When he doesn't fully understand her, he keeps coming back mentally, searching for clues, trying to connect the dots. Every time he thinks he's figured her out, she reveals another layer of depth that resets the puzzle in his mind. That's how mystery works. It keeps curiosity alive. It keeps him emotionally invested even in silence. Mystery doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means maintaining emotional boundaries and preserving a sense of self that no one else can access completely. It's about living with authenticity, about not giving away your peace just to be understood. That energy radiates calm power, and men feel it instantly. They may not articulate it, but they sense it, the difference between a woman who needs attention and one who commands it effortlessly. That's what creates obsession, because he's not just drawn to her beauty, he's captivated by her presence, her restraint, her inner peace. The unspoken pull of mystery makes him keep thinking, keep wondering, and keep wanting to understand what makes her so unforgettable. There's a certain kind of power that comes from walking away with grace, from choosing peace over chaos and dignity over desperation. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you value your energy enough not to give it to situations that drain you. When a man realizes that your world continues to shine without his presence, it stirs something deep inside him. At first, he might tell himself he doesn't care, that he's fine, that he's free, but over time, that illusion fades. The more he sees you moving forward, the more he starts to feel the weight of what he lost. It's human nature to want what we can't have, to be drawn to the energy that no longer revolves around us. When you stop chasing, the dynamic shifts. Your absence becomes louder than your words ever were, and he begins to see that your silence is not emptiness, it's strength. Men often expect that when they pull away, a woman will wait, reach out, or try to win them back. But when you don't, it surprises them. It challenges their perception of control. Suddenly, you're not part of their emotional orbit anymore, and that loss of influence makes them feel uneasy. They start to question whether they made the right choice, whether they misunderstood your value, whether they took your calm for indifference or your distance for disinterest. The very act of detachment reverses the power dynamic because it shows that your happiness was never dependent on them. And nothing captivates the male psyche more than the realization that a woman he once had access to is now emotionally unavailable. It triggers his curiosity, his regret, and his need for significance. When you embody detachment, you radiate a different kind of energy, an energy of peace, confidence, and freedom. You're no longer operating from fear of loss. You're anchored in self-worth. And that emotional independence is magnetic. Men are drawn to women who are not easily shaken, who don't beg for attention, who continue to thrive regardless of circumstances. That's because your detachment represents something he subconsciously craves: stability. When he sees that you are fulfilled, that your life is expanding without him, it sparks something inside him. The human mind always amplifies what feels scarce, and your attention, once abundant and now withheld, becomes the very thing he desires most. He might not show it right away, but the more detached you become, the more he feels your presence internally. Your energy still lingers, but now it's out of reach, and that distance creates longing. The contrast between what he remembers, your warmth, your presence, your affection, and what he now experiences, your silence, intensifies his emotional reaction. It's no longer about needing you, it becomes about wanting to be seen again by you. Detachment flips the dynamic from pursuit to reflection, from emotional dependency to realization. And as he watches you grow, laugh, and live without looking back, he begins to understand that your silence was never punishment. It was the quiet proof that you chose yourself